Hi there! Welcome to Devlog number 2 for Spacefleet Heat Death, the realism-focused space RPG I've been working on. For the past month, I worked on a number of big features, including scene transitions, the save load system, and the main menu. I'll also be discussing space drives and lasers. Plus, I've got an exciting plan for the free demo that I can't wait to share. If you like what you see, please consider wishlisting Spacefleet on Steam, so you don't miss the free demo. Your wishlist also helps a lot with the Steam algorithm and will be a huge factor in the game's success. I want to say a big thank you as well to everyone watching, commenting, and keeping up with the development. Your support is a big source of motivation for me. And with that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Let's start with the save load system. Players can save at any point in the strategic map you can see here. It's built using JSON, so it's easily editable for testing. And I also don't want to keep you guys from being able to modify your save if you'd like. This is also the closest thing to modding we'll have for heat death since I'm saving that for Soul. Its placement in the UI for now is temporary and will be moved to the pause screen in the future. Next up, scene transitions. The loading screen is obviously just a placeholder. You'll see that the scene starts with your ships smoothly decelerating on approach. Fleets will spawn with a random Y position to make combat a bit more dynamic. Those keen-eyed among you will also notice that the Earth, Luna, and the Sun are in their correct locations based on where they were in the strategic scene. It's a nice little touch that I felt really adds to the immersion. Now, the main menu has been an interesting challenge. Initially, I wanted a desktop-style menu where you would open windows to access different parts of the game. But after some trial and error, I got something a bit more symbolic. A live desktop background of the Earth and the Moon, with a heat-dead ship in the foreground. It felt a little, well, dead at first, but I turned that derelict into a warship, fighting for its life, and everything clicked into place.
Swarming us, sir. Fire at will. Enemy in perimeter. Range 200. They're everywhere.
I grew up playing CNC Generals and I loved watching the main menu of that game. Show this to anyone who's played it and you'll trigger a Winter Soldier event where they recite every single line from the soldiers. To this day, I love how dynamic this main menu is, and I wanted something similar in my game.
We got wounded.
Here, a disarmed missile is spawned every 2 seconds in a random position around the ship, and head straight for it. The PDCs and laser will automatically defend. I'm thinking about making it so in the future, your latest ship is the one that spawned here, maybe along with your other ships. I also want to add radio callouts and maybe even music, but we'll see where it goes. Let me know what you think. Now let's talk about drives and lasers. I should mention that I had to do a bit of a retcon here. For a long time, I was thinking about using direct fusion drives before I realized they didn't have the thrust I needed for at least 1G burns. In order to have the high G acceleration and high delta V that I wanted for my setting, I chose to go with fusion torch drives, both deuterium tritium and deuterium helium-3, and antimatter catalyzed fusion drives. DT drives, or tritorch drives, have been around since the 2100s, and were the reason for humanity's quick expansion into the solar system. These drives gave us the gas giants, which are pivotal sources for helium-3. The problem with DT drives is that they are constantly damaged by neutron radiation, requiring lots of maintenance. They are also very heat inefficient, requiring more radiators than other drives, but they are going to be way cheaper. DHE3 drives, or high torch drives, are newer and more capable, with higher RSP than tri-torches. However, their fuel source is rarer, and they are more expensive overall. Some of you may think that, well, the moon does have helium-3, why not just get it from there? That is true. The problem is there's not enough of it. You'd need an insane scale of mining on the moon, and even then it still wouldn't be that profitable. It's very cost inefficient. You'd have to mine large amounts of the moon's surface in order to get just tiny bits of helium-3. Now, antimatter catalyzed fusion drives, or A torches, are at their early stages of development. They are very, very expensive and need very, very expensive and very, very explosive antimatter as their fuel. The problem with torch drives is that they are very overpowered. I'm talking terawatts of power generation. But Joshua, what the hell is a terawatt? Well, 1 terawatt can power the entire world right now for 2 whole months. And one single torch drive generates that in a second, probably even less. Now, why is that such a bad thing? Well, when you have spaceships with near limitless power generation, there's really only one weapon that you can use for your setting. A weapon so powerful, it can have an effective range of thousands or even millions of kilometers. A weapon that hits targets almost instantly. A weapon that doesn't even need projectiles. All it needs is power. And this weapon I speak of is, of course, the humble laser. Now, what do PDCs, railguns, coilguns, and torch missiles have in common? That's right, having these on your ship is like bringing a knife to a gunfight when you're going up against lasers. Railguns are theorized to have a maximum escape velocity of 10 kilometers per second. That means if your target is 100 kilometers away, they have 10 whole seconds to dodge your railgun round. But with a terawatt level laser, you point, click, and win. So, as you can see, decent acceleration and high delta V equals torch ships equals insane power generation equals laser only combat, which is lame. Now, knowing all that, and the fact that my combat scene is limited to 100 kilometers in diameter, I realized I'd need to make some compromises. I decided that torch drive power generation will have to be scaled way down to the gigawatt range. The low reason for this is some weird inefficiency with the drive. Another compromise is the combat zone. The lore explanation for why engagements take place within 100 kilometers is that electronic countermeasure technology is so advanced that ships have a hard time tracking targets from further than 100 kilometers. This limit also adds a ton of variety into combat, making PDCs, railguns, and missiles viable again. I also want to add that there are going to be long-range missiles in the game. These are missiles that you can fire in the strategic scene, and they will essentially act as their own fleet, and that is basically what the intercept, maneuver, or burn is for. When these missiles arrive at the enemy fleet, they'll have to defend against them. After all that, I eventually came across ToughSF's page about this exact thing. They call it the laser problem. I leave a link in the description to that very article if you guys want to do a deeper dive into this. Now that I think about it, this dilemma is probably why the Expanse doesn't have lasers. Though, Through Struggle, the Stars deals with this by having main lasers and counter battery lasers. Basically, when combat starts, the lasers target each other. Whoever unshutters their laser first will hit the enemy first, but then their laser will almost immediately be destroyed by the enemy. This becomes a big game of chicken, with the one having the most laser turrets probably winning, though laser range also is a huge factor, as you'll see in the first book. I was thinking about having this in heat death, as this will add more depth to the laser combat, but I think it really depends on how overpowered the lasers might be, and how people feel about it in the playtests. We'll see. I just want to say as well that the Expanse made me love railguns, but then Nebulous and Through Struggle really changed that and made me into a huge fan of lasers. Also, real quick, the high temperature radiators in the game run at 2000 to 2500 Kelvin. This is because the higher the temperature, the faster they can dissipate heat as well. The problem is, you also need really exotic materials in order to reach these temperatures, because this temperature is so hot, it literally turns rocks into gas. Alrighty, now it's finally time to talk about the free demo. My past games always had free demos, but they were basically just the tutorials. I now know that that's better than nothing, but It's not that great for a demo. When you're making a demo, you want something that shows off the epic features of your game, while also teaching the player how to play it. You also want it to be limited so they can't just play the whole game for free, unless you want that, of course. I grappled with this problem for a while, and eventually came upon what I think would be a pretty fucking awesome demo. The game starts with a black screen, showing that all the senior officers in your ship are either wounded or KIA. As the highest ranking survivor, the ship's system designates you as the temporary commanding officer. You learn that your ship, the Pre-Dawn Blue, just took a missile hit near the crew module. Captain Sarah Bell of the warship Martyr Viper tells you that both your ships are all that's left of the fleet. She guides you with basic ship control, repairing your ship, and defense against the next salvo of long-range missiles that have just arrived. Both your ships then fight desperately against the enemy fleet using missiles and lasers. You then learn that your captain, the faction leader, and also your father, stole blueprints for an A-torch from the Atlas research group all the way from the Jupiter system. He was discovered when he tried to sell the blueprints in the black market. The Atlas main Jupiter fleet is coming for you and will arrive in 2 months, which would be 30 to 60 minutes in game. As the new faction leader, the 2 crucial months are all the time you'll have to build up a defense fleet. You'll need to earn money by doing jobs, trading, and more. This sort of one-sided defender's advantage is something you're going to have to think about in Spacefleet's soul. The Jupiter fleet is taking 2 months since it's traveling 628 million kilometers at zero point zero 0.01 g, which takes up about 496 kilometers per second of delta V per ship, which is around the limit for the smallest ship in the fleet. Now think about that in the real world. 2 months is a long time in war. Time for, say, a ceasefire, peace talks, alliances forming and breaking, leadership assassinations, coups, international intervention, and more. This is why major factions are going to want to have fleets around every planet. This sort of grounded, long distance thinking is the sort of thing that made me want to make a game like this. And don't get me started on light lag. That won't be much of a factor in heat death, but in Soul, I'm planning to make light lag an important detail. Anyway, the Atlas fleet arrives, you fight them, and you win maybe, and that's the demo. Alright, for the next month, I'll be focusing on power and heat management, and refining the game loop, and basically, in general, just setting up for the demo. That's about it for this devlog. Before you go, check out the Shangjin lore video if you want to get an action-packed look at the gameplay and lore of Heat Death. I also want to give a big shout out to Periapsis Eclipse. I've been playing their demo and it was great fun. If you're looking for a cool space game with realistic orbital mechanics, check them out. Links in the description. Don't forget to wishlist Spacefleet Heat Death on Steam, and thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.
I hope that your initiative gets everything that you asked for, but nothing you wanted. God, I'm gonna sound so cool when I say that. Wait, what the fuck does that even mean? Because if you asked for something, doesn't that also mean you wanted it? But how can you have everything you wanted and nothing that you wanted at the same time? Who knows? They'll just think I'm a genius for coming up with that. Ah, yes. Yes.
That's about it for this devlog. Before Jesus Christ.